I'm done! I'm sorry I ever got into this stupid franchise in the first place. I'm done with you, Obi-Wan. I'm done with you, Boba Fett. I hate Star Wars! I love Star Wars. I love Star Wars since I was in the womb. All these iconic characters: Luke Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker, Princess Leia, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Han Solo, Boba Fett, Ben Quadernaros. All these magical characters, worlds, and stories that I've had in my life since I was a kid. Like the time the Emperor cloned himself and Luke saw his penis. That's fun, right? If I had to give an example of what I think a perfect franchise is, Star Wars would be that example. It's a unique and timeless setting with literally infinite amounts of locations, stories, and time periods to tell your story in. And you can do pretty much anything. You can do a Star Wars war story, a Star Wars heist story, a Star Wars horror story. You can even do a damn Star Wars story about celebrating the holidays with your family. Although, might not be very good. Star Wars is a vast franchise with, honestly, thousands of years worth of potential. It's a franchise that theoretically should never be able to fully die out. But the bastards did it. Star Wars is in the fucking mud these days, man. Makes me upset. It seems like they can barely ever make anything that's honestly 100% worth watching. I say barely because Andor came out and literally restored a broken piece of my heart. I'm serious. If you haven't watched Andor, go do that. Now! Disney Plus is bad. The app sucks and the library's boring, but at a point in time, this was the most hype shit ever. In case you guys didn't know, I love Star Wars. So of course, back in 2019, when they first announced that we were not only going to have one central hub to watch all our favorite Star Wars stuff, but we were also going to be getting live action Star Wars shows on this new service, you bet your ass I was excited. You mean I can get this every week? And the variety in this stuff we were getting was exactly what we all wanted, too. We were getting a live-action story about a mysterious Mandalorian with all new characters that was gonna begin a new chapter of the Star Wars mythos. We were also getting a 7th season of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, what was then and still is the greatest Star Wars TV show ever made and one of the greatest Star Wars stories, period. And we were also getting a gritty 12-episode Cassian Andor show, focusing on the rise of the rebellion and the behind-the-scenes politics of the Galactic Civil War, presented with a darker tone that the movies wouldn't poke with a 10-foot pole. For a brief period in the post-Last Jedi Star Wars fandom, everything was quiet, peaceful, balanced. And then something happened.
Kathleen, can you ask me in front of all of these people, all of these witnesses, can you please ask me, am I going to play Obi-Wan Kenobi again?
Ewan?
Yes?
Are you going to play Obi-Wan Kenobi again?
Yes.
A gritty Obi-Wan Kenobi show taking place during the fallout of the Clone Wars, showcasing how he deals with his guilt about Anakin and watching over the future of the galaxy. And man, this was the show. Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi is one of everyone's favorite Star Wars characters, and is arguably one of, if not the best casting in the entire saga. This show to Star Wars fans was like the fucking second coming. It was destined to please the prequel fans, the prequel haters, the casual fans, and the hardcore fans alike, as this show would have a little something for everyone, and it had potential to be one of the greatest pieces of Star Wars ever made. But they fumbled it. This show's downfall, in my eyes, honestly happened before we even got the first trailer. For a while, everyone was pretty much under the assumption that this show was going to be a gritty character study about Obi-Wan's years on Tatooine and dealing with his PTSD while watching over Luke. Yeah, we all saw that fan-made trailer that used footage of Ewan McGregor in that Jesus movie. We thought we were getting that. But it got even better when it was announced that Hayden motherfucking Christensen was joining the cast as well.
Our fans will be thrilled that Hayden Christensen will be returning in the role of Darth Vader.
And once again, all was right with the world. Whoa, hold up. Did you just say Darth Vader?
This will be the rematch of the century.
Wait, rematch of the century? No. In an instant, this show went from a quiet, somber story to an over-the-top fate of the galaxy event and gave itself the task of having Obi-Wan and Vader meet again before they met again and have it make sense. Part of me died when this news hit because I knew in my heart that it wasn't gonna be some Force vision or some play on words in the announcement. They were gonna fight, and it was gonna be for real. And then they just left us with that. That's all we had for like a year. And honestly, as each day passed, I just got more and more worried for the final product. And now that it's here, how do I feel about it? Was it everything I hoped it would be? Was it a complete dumpster fire? Well, honestly, if I'm being rational, I just gotta say that I... Alright, class. Today, we're gonna do a little thought experiment. I want you to close your eyes and follow along. Imagine yourself in 2015. Star Wars is back, and they're announcing brand new movies and TV shows and video games left and right. Everybody's favorite character is getting their own official story. And when you think of an untitled Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader project, what do you think of? Well, it probably sounds really cool. In my mind, this shit is classic Star Wars. It's not really trying to be something different or boundary breaking, but instead it's a simple tale of good versus evil, Jedi versus Sith, red lightsaber versus blue lightsaber. I think of an epic cat and mouse chase across the galaxy with Obi-Wan and Vader, with Obi-Wan doing riskier and riskier things to stay off of Vader's radar, while Vader is driven by pure hatred and acting more impulsively than we've ever seen him act before. And they both keep playing a galaxy-wide game of chess with each other that ultimately culminates in an epic rematch between the two of them. A story spearheaded by who are arguably the two most popular Star Wars characters of all time. I would think that this would be the Star Wars to end all Star Warses. Something you'd want to see in the movie theater on the largest screen possible, with the biggest audience possible. This shit should be an event. Oh man, what the fuck? The Obi-Wan show is like a compilation of the most nonsensical decisions I've ever seen, just on blast for 6 episodes. Why does this show feel like it was made with $3 in a dream? The fucking spin-off show about the guy who dies in Rogue One feels like it has more production value than this. The first episode starts with a really well-edited and hype recap of the prequel trilogy, and as I was watching this for the first time, I was just thinking to myself, damn. The prequels are kind of fucking fire. Like, I always liked them, but seeing this little sizzle reel before the show started really stuck with me. It cemented in my head just how much I really liked them. I tend to only really talk about the original trilogy on this channel, but I like these ones a lot too. Don't tell anybody, but I also like these ones a little bit. I like these a lot, but it just so happens that it's for very different reasons. These movies don't feel like the originals, and honestly, that's a great thing. These movies are confident. They don't have X-Wings, or TIE Fighters, or Stormtroopers. They have ARC-170s, Vulture Droids, and the clones. These movies are so unique, and don't try to recapture what's already been done. In a way, these movies are kind of the antithesis of the original trilogy. Making a Star Wars trilogy about corruption right after making one about redemption is so brave and genius, and the story itself is incredible. I've seen Revenge of the Sith like 200 times, and every time I watch it, it still hits like a train. Not only is the story behind these movies incredible, but so is the filmmaking behind them. These movies are beautiful, and every time I watch them, I'm blown away by all the little things. I also remember when these movies got a lot of shit for relying too much on CGI and green screens. So much, in fact, that when The Force Awakens came out, they released a whole ass trailer, basically just to say, don't worry guys, the Stormtroopers are real this time. But I don't think we knew how good we had it back then, because all the digital effects in these movies hold up better than shit that came out this year. You look at something like Coruscant or the Mustafar duel, and while you can obviously tell it's not real because It's fucking impossible. The environments still look tangible and give these movies a vibe that exists in its own bubble. But as a feat of filmmaking, these movies are fucking beasts. What the fuck? Oh! Oh yeah, that was just the recap. I hope the show at least looks as good as that did, because that was, oh my god, bad filmmaking jump scare. This show kind of has the same vibe visually as that like Jedi Temple game show thing for little kids. And it's really funny to just throw me into that after showing me like 3 minutes of the most beautiful movies ever made. Every environment in this show is really small and cramped, and none of them ever really feel unique or anything that's distinctly Star Wars. This show's locations consists of cave, desert planet, hut, cave number 2, desert planet number 2, and my favorite of the bunch, desert planet number 3. The one location from this show that I actually liked a little bit was that city planet they went to. It's really colorful and has a lot of cool alien guys and there's a lot going on. And this is the first time where I feel like the show has actually shown its budget off. And oh, okay, now we're in a gray building with bad lighting. The prequels looked like this! All the lighting in this show is horrible. The day scenes are lit and graded in a way that just make them feel flat and boring. I never really get a sense of, oh wow, Tatooine sure is hot. I wouldn't want to be on that planet. This just looks like a parking lot in Georgia. Oh, wait, it was. You go back and look at the prequels, and they got these motherfuckers glistening in that twin sunlight. Especially when they do scenes at sunset and nighttime. Like the one where Anakin's speeding through the Junlin Waste to go find his mother. This shit is gorgeous. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. I need to talk about how fucking cool this scene is. This has nothing to do with the rest of the video. I'm not even trying to make a point. I'm off my fucking meds. The scene where Anakin goes off to look for his mother is some of the toughest shit I've ever seen in my life. Nothing even happens in this scene. He gets on his speeder and rides through the desert and talks to a Jawa. This shit lasts like 30 seconds, but it's so fucking cool. Blasting Duel of the Fates during this scene while nothing's even happening is so stupid, but it actually works. It's so fucking cool. I could sit here and watch this all day. Nothing happens in this scene at all. You can completely cut it from the movie, but it's cooler than anything that happens in the entire Obi-Wan show. Make a show of this. Just 6 episodes of this scene on loop. I don't give a fuck. I'll watch every episode. This shit is straight up crack. What was I saying? Oh, right. The Obi-Wan show looks like ass. Lighting in the day scenes is one thing, but at night? Yeah, I think that pixels Obi-Wan. Lighting night scenes is a problem a lot of shows and movies have now, but in this one, it feels extra egregious because director Deborah Chow absolutely insists on setting every lightsaber duel in a pitch black field and then just using the lightsabers as light sources. And in theory, that sounds really cool. Probably because The Force Awakens did this 9 years ago.
Damn! I'm sorry.
But The Force Awakens had other lighting. It wasn't just the lightsabers. Obi-Wan doesn't, and it suffers for it. Lightsabers haven't looked good on screen in like 5 years. Ever since the Disney acquisition, they've insisted on swapping out the thin aluminum lightsabers for these super high-end expensive lightsabers that actually light up and shit, which once again, in theory, sounds really cool. Being an actor joining the Star Wars world for the first time and being given a real fucking lightsaber is probably the coolest feeling in the world. But the movies end up suffering for it, so I don't think it's worth it. The old lightsabers from the prequel days weighed like nothing. You could whip these bad boys around like my son when he doesn't get me that beer I asked for. All of the insane duels from the prequels are made possible because of these guys. And now that these lightsabers have so much technology and wiring in them, they're really heavy. So these old duels aren't really possible anymore. And you know what? For the sequels, that's fine. Nobody's around keeping old lightsaber fighting traditions alive. So when I see Rey and Kylo Ren just kind of chopping wood with these things, it's fine. But when I see characters like Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi doing that, I don't know, I think you lost me. The cinematography and fight choreography both suffer from these new lightsabers because now they're fighting like doofuses and you can't see shit. Oh, but don't worry guys, if the lightsaber fight is suffering, we can just cover it up with shaky cam. Deborah Chow has perfectly crafted the formula for how to make the worst looking show ever made. But at least the music is good, right? It's Star Wars. Star Wars always has good music. Oh. Ah yes, Darth Vader's iconic theme. Bum, 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 bum. I remember that from Empire Strikes Back.
I don't think that's how the song goes.
This show has a complete aversion to any and all Star Wars music, but that is stupid. Darth Vader has a new theme for this show, and it sucks. It's just generic bad guy music. Obi-Wan has a new theme too, and I'll be honest, it's actually not that bad. John Williams wrote his theme for this show because he, quote unquote, never got to write a theme for Obi-Wan, but he did. I think he just forgot. The theme that's now known as the Force theme, you know, that one? At one point, that was Obi-Wan's theme. But fine, you know what? Whatever. Obi-Wan and Vader have new themes for this show. But at least we're gonna use Duel of the Fates and Battle of the Heroes for the lightsaber duels, right? I mean, you played them in the trailer. Oh, come on! This show makes the characters earn their themes in the finale. The final scene of Darth Vader finally plays the Imperial March, and it's played like a triumphant moment. Yes! He's finally Darth Vader. But at the end of Revenge of the Sith, they played the Imperial March. So he earned being Darth Vader, mysteriously got the Darth Vader taken out of him, and now he has to earn it back. Okay. They do this with Obi-Wan and the Force theme too, and yeah, it's a cute little moment, I guess, but there were so many times in the show where they should have played actual Star Wars music. And I'm not just being a nerd here either. I genuinely think it would class up the show. Like, I'm sorry, this... is not as cool as this. So yeah, the filmmaking in this show is sort of poo-doo. But at least Obi-Wan is good, right? Obi-Wan is always good. Well, yeah, actually, sort of. Obi-Wan's arc in this show is the generic broken Jedi story of, oh, I'm sad and I lost a fight and I'm all sad and I forgot how to use the Force. Which I'm sure a lot of people are sick of by now. But honestly, I'm okay with it. I don't really think you have a lot of options with Obi-Wan at this point in the timeline. So I just kind of expected them to go this route. I like seeing Obi-Wan being weighed down by his guilt and emotions. This guy is a mess. The entire first episode is pretty much only dedicated to showing us how Obi-Wan lives his life in exile. And it's pathetic. He works his 9 to 5 and then he eats soup and watches baby Luke Skywalker. He stinks and he looks greasy and he lives in a cave. He's straight up washed. And this first episode is honestly one of, if not my favorite in the bunch. It's the only episode fully set on Tatooine before he leaves the planet, so it kind of felt like the show we all thought this was gonna be before they threw in all this crazy shit. Oh, yeah, Obi-Wan leaves Tatooine. At the end of Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan drops Luke on Tatooine and says he's going to remain on this planet and watch over him until he's ready to be trained. So the 19-year gap between movies is completely explained. There's really not a lot of wiggle room to take Obi-Wan off this planet. So I think it's pretty fair that my biggest fear for this show was how they were gonna write him off Tatooine. Because Luke is like the most important thing in the world to Obi-Wan. He devotes the last 20 years of his life to this kid. So taking him away from that is some pretty serious shit. And they chose to do so by having baby Princess Leia get kidnapped by the Empire. And if I have to be honest, yeah, that makes perfect sense. A lot of people really didn't like this. And of course you're entitled to your own opinion, but that's stupid. I'd like to think that I know Obi-Wan well enough to say that literally the only thing in the entire galaxy that would be able to take him away from Luke would be Leia. Him and Bail Organa were pretty good friends. So yes, I absolutely think he would help him if he really needed it. And it's not even really like this decision comes that easily to him either. He straight up just says no at first, and Bail has to go to Tatooine himself to get his ass in gear.
Sorry, no.
Well, then fuck you!
And as for baby Princess Leia herself, a lot of people didn't really like her character either. And once again, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're still stupid. I like little Leia. I think she's a pretty harmless addition to this show. And she's far from the worst thing in it. And also, the little girl they got to play her is doing a really fucking good job for some reason. There are a lot of moments while I was watching this show where I heard the way she delivers a line or saw the way she does something and was just like, damn. That is exactly how Carrie Fisher would do that. And I really hate that fucking Star Wars fans started shitting on her for her performance. Christ's sake, she's 10! I actually really like how Leia's entire role in this show is to get Obi-Wan back in touch with his humanity. He's been completely starved of all positive human connection for the last 10 years. So him having to take care of this kid really brings him back to who he's supposed to be. It's a little similar, but it still works well. Darth Vader's in this. Vader in this show is metal as fuck. He's almost too cool. He's straight up snapping people's necks with the Force. He sets Obi-Wan on fire. He pulls a fucking spaceship out of the sky and rips it apart. He's nuts. But the thing with Darth Vader is that his badass moments are usually backed up with scenes of him being a real character. And if you went into this show wanting a real character arc for Darth Vader, you're gonna be disappointed because he doesn't really get one. Firstly, he doesn't even appear until episode 3. And when he does show up in episode 3, his motivations are established. He wants to kill Obi-Wan Kenobi. And that's it. The rest of the episode is a Darth Vader badass moments compilation. And that's the problem. Vader only really appears in this show when it's time for him to do a cool thing. Other than that, he's not really making any big moves to actually snuff out Obi-Wan. And that's really dumb. He also doesn't really have any screen presence. Darth Vader is up there with Batman, Michael Myers, and Kermit the Frog as one of the most theatrical characters of all time. You can't just shoot him like he's no big deal. He has to look larger than life. My favorite cinematographer working today, Greg Fraser, worked on Rogue One. And let me tell you, he understood the assignment. He shoots Vader in that movie in a way that doesn't even make him look real. He looks like the very embodiment of evil itself. He likes to place Vader in a shot as the only dark thing on a bright background. He also likes to surround him with smoke. And he always likes to make him look fucking huge. Whether it's his gigantic silhouette dominating Krennic or having him shot from lower angles. It also helps that everyone in these shots is dramatically shorter than him. As it should be. But in this show, they shoot him like he's just another character. And you can really feel the difference. He doesn't feel as menacing in this show because the visual language of the show isn't telling me that he should be. Like the scene where he walks through that village and just slaughters everybody. This should be a really powerful moment, but it isn't because it's not really shot like one. This shit doesn't feel like Vader terrorizing an innocent village. It feels like he's walking through a Disney park. I also kind of wish his suit looked more like the Revenge of the Sith suit instead of the A New Hope suit, but that transcends the realm of criticism and just becomes me saying words. Point is, he feels really half-baked in this show. And like there wasn't really a lot of care put into him. And that is for a reason. He's not even the main villain. That would just make too much sense. The main villain of this show is Reva. And I don't like Reva. It's really hard to just come out and say that because I do believe in that opinion. And a lot of people would agree with me. But the people who agree with me are agreeing for the wrong reasons. There's a certain type of people who really hate this character, and I can't really name them without getting demonetized, but, well, they dress like this. Reva is a bad character, plain and simple, but I should just let it be known that I am very biased. I saw this character get announced and I already kind of figured just right off the bat that I wasn't gonna like her. Because I don't fucking like the Inquisitors. They're stupid characters, all of them. Even that one that you like, that one's stupid too. These characters represent everything I hate about Star Wars. It's like the definition of trying to sell toys. We have to have a bad guy with a lightsaber, but we can't use Darth Vader, so let's just make someone who works for Darth Vader, but they can do all the same stuff. Also, I hate their fuck-ass lightsabers. This shit is so dumb. What practical use is there for having a sword that spins around really fast? flying! Reva is the most shoehorned in character in this show. The way she's written genuinely feels like a Wattpad self-insert. She's the smartest character. She somehow knows everything. She's the only person in the fucking galaxy who just knows Anakin is Darth Vader. Like, that's top secret knowledge, but she somehow knows. She knows that Obi-Wan is hiding on Tatooine. Instinctively? I don't know, this is never explained. Like, she's on that planet in the first episode looking for this other Jedi, and she somehow also knows that Obi-Wan is on Tatooine. Somehow. I think Reva might have genuinely just watched Revenge of the Sith. That is the only logical explanation. She's also, like, uber powerful for some reason. She's literally fucking invincible. And there's nothing wrong with making a super powerful villain that's basically unbeatable. Darth fucking Vader is exactly that. The only thing that could defeat him is love. Aww. But Darth Vader is a cool villain because his presence is completely unique. He's described as a man with so much pent-up anger and rage that's boiling inside him at all times. But he's always completely calm and collected and always appears as if he's in control of the situation. Whenever he's in a battle, he takes the time to toy with his opponent and really play with his food before he eats it. So it makes those moments where he really does lash out all the more frightening. On the contrast, Reva is a bumbling idiot who screams all the time and does really extreme things, and she fucks up a lot and gets outsmarted at every turn, but the show still expects us to feel threatened by her. Why would I feel threatened by her if you're making her out to be a total dunce? The part I hate about Reva is that you literally cannot get rid of her. She is at the forefront of every episode of this show. And that would honestly be okay if the show wasn't 6 fucking episodes long. This show gives her more screen time than Darth Vader. And that's fucking dumb. Vader and Obi-Wan are two characters that I feel should be written codependently. Obi-Wan's actions should influence Vader's actions and vice versa. But because of the inclusion of Reva, we have a weird love triangle, hate triangle thing. And because of that, Vader's weirdly passive? Most of the time he's on screen, he's standing on the Star Destroyer waiting for Reva to find Obi-Wan. But this is out of character. He hates Obi-Wan more than anyone else in the entire galaxy. Why is he not making this his #1 priority? He should be on the front fucking lines. But instead, Vader's kind of just pushed to the sidelines so Reva can have her little character arc. But that just makes her entire presence annoying. Every time Obi-Wan or Vader actually get to do something exciting, we have to get to Reva doing some stupid ass shit. Like their final duel in the finale. They were hyping up this rematch of the century like crazy. It was at the forefront of all the marketing. And I won't lie, even through the whole show, I was still excited to see how this shit was gonna go down. And when it started, I was so hyped. But then they cut to Reva chasing baby Luke Skywalker in the desert. It just stop it! I don't know about you guys, but in the whole lead up to this show, I was really looking forward to seeing Hayden Christensen back as Anakin Skywalker. He's one of my favorite characters, so naturally seeing him back in that role was exciting to me. He was doing a lot of press for the show and showing up in these bomb-ass fits, hello! But he's just not in this show that much. And it's Reva's fault. We get one flashback of him in episode 5. And admittedly, it's pretty good. It's edited into the episode in such a way that it mirrors what's happening in present day. Obi-Wan gets the upper hand, so it shows Obi-Wan getting the upper hand in their little training duel. Vader gets the upper hand, it shows Anakin getting the upper hand. You get the point. But that's really it. There's not much more from Hayden in this show besides shots of him standing around ominously. But Reva, a character that's frankly just not important to this story, gets so much screen time to just scream and be angry when we could be using this time to explore more compelling plot lines. Like, episode 3 was fucking nuts. Obi-Wan and Vader had their big fight, he roasted him like a marshmallow, and it was really emotionally intense. We've never really seen Vader be this vicious on screen before. I thought shit was about to get real crazy for the rest of the show. But then episode 4 is all about how Reva kidnapped baby Leia and Obi-Wan Kenobi has to do a Fallen Order and save her. And during all of this, Darth Vader's just kinda chilling, off screen. And in turn, that makes episode 4 pretty inconsequential. There's a reason all those fan edit movies just cut it out completely. Most of it is complete filler. And filler in a 6-episode show is ridiculous. If you just cut the scene at the end of episode 3 of Reva intercepting Leia before she gets on the ship, you can completely take this episode out of the show with no consequences, and frankly, replace it with something better. And I do have a little pitch here, if you don't mind. I'm gonna go ahead and share that real quick. I think you guys are gonna like it. Episode 5 of Kenobi takes place on Jabeam, a planet that's completely new to the Star Wars mythos. If you're a fucking idiot, Jabeam has actually been in the Star Wars zeitgeist for a very long time. In Legends, there was a major battle at the start of the Clone Wars that took place on this planet. So in my version of this show, episode 4 would be a flashback episode entirely consisting of this battle. At this point in the show, Darth Vader is over on the bench, and Obi-Wan Kenobi is over on the bench. There's truly no better time for a flashback episode. They're both sitting in their little bacta tanks and have a lot of time to reflect on what happened. So having Obi-Wan reflect on time he spent on a planet he's literally on right now would make a lot of sense. This episode would show how Anakin and Obi-Wan worked together in their prime, and how close they really were. They both knew each other's techniques inside and out, and they really were brothers. Well, Aiden, all of that was already established in the Clone Wars. Just go watch that. Yeah, I know, I fucking love Clone Wars. But a lot of Clone Wars fans kind of seem to forget that to people who haven't seen it, Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship isn't really that special. They had fun scenes together in the prequels, but for most of those movies, they were either separated or trying to kill each other. So if this was just a standalone episode used to establish their relationship, I think it could be incredible. This episode wouldn't so much be a straight up flashback as much as it would be Obi-Wan reliving the events of the battle with what he knows now. Kind of like that Ahsoka flashback episode, but like good. In my version, this is how Obi-Wan would get more in tune with the Force. He finds all the knowledge he needs from his past. And once again, you can completely cut out that 4th episode. Oh, but in episode 4, Reva tracks Obi-Wan through Leia's droid, and that's how she knows how to get to Jabeam. What's your solution, smart guy? Ha! Well, I'm glad you asked! There'd be a point in this episode where Obi-Wan's rallying up the troops. He's getting them all hyped to exit a trench and rush into battle. And when they start charging out, Obi-Wan notices that Anakin's starting to act a little different. He's being kind of cold and admiring his surroundings. Obi-Wan would just be kind of confused, like, Anakin, what the fuck's going on? Why are you acting so weird? And Anakin, with his back turned to Obi-Wan, would just utter one word. Jabeam. Obi-Wan is horrified. He freaks the fuck out because he just realized what's going on. But as an audience, we still have no idea. Hard cut to Vader getting out of his bacta tank and suiting up. He says one word. Jabeam. Vader was mentally contacting Obi-Wan and he didn't even realize it. He got all the information he needed by seeing Obi-Wan on Jabeam. And before I get those fuckers in my comments being like, well, Vader can't just do that. He can't just go into Obi-Wan's mind like that. Vader mentally contacts Luke in the original trilogy like 4 times. Shut up! This episode gives Obi-Wan some real character development. It gives Anakin some real screen time, and most importantly, it actually makes Vader a proactive antagonist. He's getting shit done on his own. And man, I just made myself really, really sad thinking about it. Because this whole story doesn't exist and never will. But at least we got some Obi-Wan and Darth Vader stuff. I was promised a rematch of the century. And now, having actually seen said rematch, is it the rematch of the century after all? Well, yeah, baby, this shit is heat! No amount of bad directing or generic music could ruin this duel for me. This is some of the sickest shit I have ever seen. This is one of the scrappiest lightsaber duels in the whole series. For once, it actually feels like these two are trying to kill each other. They're not just aiming for the blades. Neither of them are screwing around in this fight. These fuckers are boxing. Vader literally buries Obi-Wan alive over tons of rubble, and then he says some petty ass shit. And after this point, Obi-Wan Kenobi is straight up mercilessly beating the shit out of Darth Vader. And it makes me smile like a buffoon. He's throwing him into shit. He throws a bunch of boulders at him. He grabs him by the wrist and just smashes his chest box. That shit has sparks flying out of it. He straight up slashes him in the fucking face with his lightsaber. It has never been more over for Darth Vader. He is getting the absolute shit kicked out of him in this fight.
About to go fight. I'll post the video after.
I got my ass beat, bro. I'm not posting that shit. You know when you see Vader limping and hear his breathing get all fucked up, that you're about to witness some fire-ass shit. And fire-ass shit we shall receive. I love that the duel doesn't end with one of them making a narrow little escape or being interrupted by something else, but I love that it just ends with a conversation between former friends. And it's almost like all of the writing efforts for this show went into this one scene. The quality of this show jumps exponentially in this moment.
I am not your failure,
Obi-Wan.
You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did.
This is a good ass line. It's such a brilliant moment because you can interpret it two ways, and they're both equally as good. One way is that Anakin is lifting the blame off of Obi-Wan and putting it on himself. Or you can interpret it as him taking the blame away from himself and giving it to this Darth Vader persona that he's invented for himself. And dude, both of those go so hard. I feel like the true litmus test for if you truly understand the character of Anakin Skywalker is if you see Anakin and Vader as two separate characters or not. And this show surprisingly gets it right. They are not two separate people fighting for control. Anakin uses the identity of Vader to justify his actions to himself and call the old him dead. He is proven wrong multiple times throughout the saga. I do not know how some people can still see it this way. The clear understanding of Vader's character combined with Obi-Wan pleading for forgiveness through his tears make this scene such a gut punch and has a level of emotional intensity that Star Wars very rarely tries. And I think it's such a brilliant way to conclude Obi-Wan's arc in this show. Throughout the entire story, he wrestles with his past and the mistakes he's made. Losing the war, failing Anakin, watching Qui-Gon get smoked. He lets all these things burden him to the point of being a different person. And I love that they don't try to do some corny ass shit like Obi-Wan making up for all his sins and doing something super good, so good that it outweighs the bad things he's done. No. Instead, Obi-Wan's arc is one of accepting fate and embracing his past in order to build a new future. And I think that's kind of beautiful. This is some of the realest shit I've ever seen. I'm a person who's often struggled with not being able to control certain aspects of my life and letting it burden me, but I love that this show's thesis is ultimately just shit happens. And it's about how you adapt to the situations that you're presented with that matters. Throughout the show, Obi-Wan's worried about Luke and his Jedi training. He keeps trying to give him toys and watch him to make sure he's okay, and Uncle Owen's just kind of like, fuck off! Get out of here! But by the end of the show, Obi-Wan accepts that Luke's life isn't in his control, and the future will just take care of itself. If he's meant to be a Jedi, then a Jedi he will become. And I think it's even better that after this moment is the first time Qui-Gon actually appears to him in the flesh. This breaks about 37 paragraphs worth of lore, but the moment itself is so good that I don't even care. Qui-Gon was always a model example of what the Jedi were supposed to be before they lost their way. So I love that Obi-Wan's journey in this show models him into a Qui-Gon-like figure. He surrenders to the will of the Force and realizes that everything happens for a reason. And I really love that Qui-Gon only appears to him after Obi-Wan has taught himself this lesson. For such a mixed bag of a show, Obi-Wan's actual character arc is handled really well. And it's honestly something that I would say I love. And I know the general consensus is that the Obi-Wan show sucks. But honestly, it's really not that bad. It's nowhere near perfect. It's a real mixed bag and it has a lot of stuff that I don't like. But I also think there's a good amount of stuff in this show that I really cherish and will think about for a long time. I even bought the Steelbook. I was gonna find a clever way to work that into the video, but I didn't feel like it. Look at my Steelbook, it's so shiny, haha. I think a lot of the hate for this show comes from the fact that it was a lot of people's most hyped Star Wars project. And the fact that it wasn't absolutely top of the line perfect makes the bad of the show feel a lot worse. This is a show for me that I think gets better with time. I look back at this show a lot more positively these days, and in a few years' time, I'll probably like it even more. Because after all, whoa. I thought we were talking about the worst Star Wars show. What do you mean you like it? Yeah, you got me. I like Obi-Wan Kenobi. You want to know why I like Obi-Wan Kenobi? Because it's not the worst Star Wars show. You want to talk about a bad show? A real piece of shit? Something that'll really get me fired up? You want to talk about the real worst Star Wars show? Well, fine. Let's talk about the worst Star Wars show. The Book of Boba Fett broke my heart. You guys don't understand. I was so fucking hyped for this show to come out. I feel like we waited generations for a true Boba Fett story in live action. For a while there, every couple of years, we'd hear whispers of, oh, Boba Fett, he's right there. Oh, you just missed him, he was right there. Different directors, different writers. Every time you turned around, someone was doing something with Boba Fett. Josh Trank was supposed to make the Boba Fett movie around 2015, and it sounded really cool. It was apparently not just gonna be about Boba, but also about the collection of bounty hunters he was with in Empire. You know, Dengar, Bosk, Forlom, IG-88, and Zuckuss. Everybody's favorite characters. See, I joke and all, but I didn't even have to Google their names. I know Josh Trank made that Fantastic Four movie that nobody likes, but everything I hear about this movie sounded really promising, and I think it could have been really good. But they got him.
What does that mean?
And then somewhere along the line, James Mangold was gonna make the Boba Fett movie. Yeah, you know, the guy who made Logan! And look, maybe I'm just being hyperbolic, but I think this could have been the best movie ever made. I try not to look into it that much because I know if I read too much, I'll actually just pass away from pure disappointment. But the shit he was saying about this movie brings a tear to my eye. I'm so serious, I think this would have been some of the best Star Wars ever made.
At the point I was doing it, I was probably scaring the shit out of everyone. I was making much more of a borderline R-rated, single-planet spaghetti western. They probably would never be able to embrace Baby Yoda if I had made that. It didn't really belong in the world I was kind of envisioning.
Boba Fett has always been one of my favorite Star Wars characters. I don't think I've really been keeping that much of a secret. I've explained this before at length. I would follow this character anywhere he went. He's led me to places that I wouldn't go with a gun. Looking at you, Clone Wars. But I'm tired, because for years I've been defending him for people calling him a bad bounty hunter, or a boring character, or someone who only stands around and looks cool, or... Fives? Out of nowhere, the Mandalorian brings him back into the spotlight, and it was fucking awesome. He fucked shit up for like 3 episodes, and he's got a cool new paint job, and he's built like a brick shit house, and he's got this hard-ass new theme song, and for a brief moment, the world was healing. Everybody started to realize that Boba Fett was actually cool the entire time. I saw people cosplaying his new look. I saw people making fan art of him. I even saw people making Boba Fett thirst edits. Boba Fett fever was sweeping the fucking nation. And then we got the announcement that Boba Fett was getting his very own spin-off show. And I was so goddamn excited! This was the only thing I thought about for like a year. It was everything to me. People thought I was crazy for being so excited for the Boba Fett show. But that didn't stop me. One of my favorite characters finally getting what he deserves? I'll be there. So December 29th, 2021 at exactly 2:57 a.m., I got up from my computer, stopped editing whatever bullshit I was working on, put some popcorn in the microwave for exactly 2 minutes and 10 seconds, opened up Disney Plus, refreshed a few times, and there it was. The moment I had been waiting for all year was finally about to happen. I pressed play and... Well, there's always next week. I think on some level, this show ruined Star Wars for me. I didn't go into a white incel rage and dropkick my $400 Boba Fett hot toy across the room or anything, but I feel like after this show came out, something shifted. You know what I mean? Like now I always feel like I have to second guess anything Star Wars does. Like I am the #1 supporter of the Rey movie, but I feel like I can't even really trust it to be good. or even fucking come out. This show took a beloved character like Boba Fett, a character with limitless potential for cool stories and thousands of comics and books and video games to draw inspiration from, and instead decided to churn out a soulless cash grab of a show that feels like nothing beyond another JPEG in the streaming service library. This show doesn't feel like a story its creators wanted to tell. It feels like a corporate mandated checklist. So what better way to review a show like this than with a corporate mandated checklist? Fuck! Oh, I actually broke that. I didn't mean to break. Oh, shit. This way of reviewing something's probably gonna be really disorganized and really inconsistent and really bad and maybe a little boring and probably betray the character of Boba Fett completely. But something tells me that's fitting. Number 1. I don't like the Star Wars intro. Starting off strong. I hate this shit. This drives me insane. Why does Star Wars have an MCU intro now? It used to be simple. You had that a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then boom, words. Unless you're Rogue One. Rogue One was too cool for that. It would have been so easy. Star Wars, left for dead on the sands of Tatooine by Luke Skywalker. Boba Fett is reborn out of the stomach of the almighty Sarlacc or something. I don't know, anything would have been cool. This shit used to feel so epic. Now instead we get a highlight reel of all the characters we own. Remember R2-D2? Remember Darth Vader? There he is. I love IP. I just want more media to consume for my favorite IP. Number 2. Show's bad. Before I get into Star Wars fan stuff, like, why is there a stormtrooper in the Sarlacc? When did that happen? I just feel the need to say that this show is just not well made. Like, at all. The first season of The Mandalorian is beautiful. It's one of the best looking Star Wars things ever. It was shot by Greg Fraser, and hey, we just talked about him earlier. What a fun nostalgic callback and reference from earlier. He's one of, if not the only cinematographer out there right now that's actually proven that he can work around the limits of the volume. Oh yeah, the volume. In case you don't know what the volume is, it's basically this big room with these giant interactive screens. To dumb it down, it's basically just real-time green screens. Big TV. It's very new and very expensive, but I find it fascinating. Shooting with it is a lot more nuanced than just being thing in front of screen, but I couldn't really tell you how it works if I tried. I barely know how anything works. There's a lot of really detailed explanations of this technology and how it works, and at a point in time, this shit felt like the future. Everything you see in the background of a shot like this is just one of these big screens. It's kind of like how in the original trilogy, a lot of the backgrounds are just straight up paintings. Like, yeah, that background right there, that's a painting. That's not a green screen, that's just there. Except now, it's electronic and can produce its own lighting, which is a lot easier on VFX artists. But the problem with a tool like this is that it limits the way you can do certain things. For example, you're dealing with a lot more of a confined space, and you have to do a lot of elaborate little tricks and techniques to actually make it look good on camera. Greg Fraser's my fucking dog. He understood exactly how to shoot with a tool like this. It gives the show such a unique look, and you never really second guess these environments or these sets, because the way it was shot just makes it look real. But we don't get him on these shows anymore. That's a privilege that we had and lost. So now we have to deal with shots like this. And this. And my favorite of all, this. I'm sure this is really good for actors to actually exist in a somewhat tangible environment, instead of just having to act against OE26B1. But as a viewer, it makes everything look so fucking cheap. If you've ever been watching one of these Disney Plus shows and thought the sets kind of look claustrophobic, this is why. A combination of overuse, bad color grading, and not knowing how to shoot it just makes the volume look really bad as a result. It brings down the entire show visually because shots like this have no depth. It's just guys standing. It looks really bad, and that's a shame because a lot of the other things in this show are amazing. The practical alien effects look really good, all the costumes and props are fantastic, and the soundtrack is unbelievably good. Boba Fett's original theme from Empire was really good. It's not one of the standout iconic tracks from the Star Wars saga like Vader's theme, Luke's theme, or Leia's theme, but it always stuck out to me. It was ominous, but it also kind of sounded like a mystery. I don't really know how much better to explain it than that. But his new theme? Something I didn't know he needed. The first time he appeared in full armor in The Mandalorian and I heard that, I busted. It's such an unexpected sound for this character, but it changed my fucking life. But a good soundtrack and good effects are nothing if the directing isn't good. And the directing in this show outside of one episode, which I'll get to in a minute, the directing in this show is very flat and honestly feels uninspired. It feels like a streaming show, but not one of the good ones. The phrase Robert Rodriguez Star Wars should have me flabbergasted. But in reality, it's just, I know that he's the Spy Kids guy, but this is also the same guy who made Desperado. When he has to cook, he can fucking cook. Giving him a Western in the Star Wars universe should have been straight Kino. But instead it just falls flat on its face and genuinely feels more like the Spy Kids, Shark Boy, and Lava Girl side of his filmography than the Western side. And that is insane to me. From a non-Star Wars fan viewpoint and solely looking at the quality of the filmmaking at play here, I would still say that this show misses the mark. It's just not a well put together show. And I feel like Star Wars fan or not, that's pretty clear. Number 3, why is there a stormtrooper in this Sarlacc? When did that happen? Why is there a stormtrooper here? Was it just for nostalgia purposes? Did one of these guys from A New Hope fall into the Sarlacc while looking for the droids? Or could they just not afford to put spaghetti down there? Much to think about. Number 4, the show is really boring. So this show is split up into 2 parts. Sort of 3, but we'll get to that later. There's the main Boba Fett crime lord Jabba's palace stuff, which sucks. And then there's also flashbacks to his time with the Tusken Raiders before he appears in The Mandalorian. And these flashbacks are a disaster. I think the concept of Boba Fett banding together with a group of Tusken Raiders post-Sarlacc is actually a really interesting concept that I would like to see. I saw him show up in the season 2 premiere of Mandalorian, and amidst all the chaos I was like, oh, gaffy stick! There was history there, and I wanted to see it. But not like this, actually. I changed my mind, I'm good. I like seeing the Tusken Raiders get fleshed out more and get new lore that makes them a much more interesting corner of the Star Wars universe. But the problem with these flashbacks is the pacing. The first 4 episodes of this show are structured like this. Oh, I'm in the sun and I'm hanging out with the sun people. Fennec, we need money. Well, we could just do some crime and get the money. No, I'm a crime lord. I can't be seen doing crime. Boba Fett, I'm a bounty hunter, and I'm here to steal your money. The flashbacks come into the show at the worst times. There's rarely an actual reason to put these into the narrative. After a while, they don't really amount to anything. What I find worse, though, is that most of the time the episode is more flashback than present day. It kind of feels like they just wanted to make 2 shows, but couldn't decide on which one they wanted to make. So they just made both and had to fold them into each other. Like, I would really love to know what they thought the purpose of these flashbacks were. All that really comes from this entire thing is that Boba Fett uses his gaffy stick to murder people. But the main story of the show, which is Boba attempting to start up his new crime operation, feels like a B-plot. And then the show ends. Oh, I think I missed the plot, I'm sorry. I feel like if you took all the present day stuff from the first 4 episodes, it would barely even fill an episode's worth of screen time. But the most fucked up part of these flashbacks is that there's actually a lot of good stuff in them. Episode 2 on its own is kind of fucking sick. But the formatting of these flashbacks just kill any and all momentum that the show was building up. Episode 3, Boba Fett finds out that the mayor was plotting against him and he kidnaps his assistant. He now knows that a war is coming and has to act quickly. So episode 4 is about how he stole his spaceship back from Jabba's palace and flies it into the Sarlacc. What the fuck? I don't need to see this! The most worthwhile addition to the lore that this episode provides is that Lando is canonically stronger than the Slave One. It sucks to see this show shoot itself in the foot like this, because I think with a little reformatting, these flashbacks could have been something really good. A show that did this really well is The Walking Dead. Spoilers for The Walking Dead, but not really, because there's only 1 episode and none of the main characters are in it. If you really don't want to hear any spoilers, just skip to this time code. I promise, the spoilers will all be over by the time you get there. The Walking Dead Season 6 Episode 4, titled Here's Not Here, follows Morgan Jones, a character who, at this point in the show, hasn't been seen in a while. Last time we saw him, he was tweaking the fuck out. I mean, you said you would turn on your radio every day at dawn. You said you would turn on your radio every day at dawn, and you were not there! God, the show's so good. But then out of nowhere at the end of season 5, he shows up and he's all zen and he's peaceful and he fights with this big stick and he believes all life is precious. When the fuck did this happen? Well, this episode serves as an answer to this question, and the answer is super fucking interesting. The Walking Dead, while being one of the most fun to watch shows I've ever seen, has some of the worst pacing of all time. There's a lot of characters in this show, so naturally balancing all of them isn't very easy. And every now and then when the writers really want to lock in with a character, they'll give them a whole episode to themselves. Sometimes they'll even give them like 3. Watching this show week to week, you'd go weeks at a time without seeing any of your favorite characters.
Where's Rick?
Don't care. Where's Rick?
But the biggest thing with these episodes is that most of them fucking suck. So I was watching season 6 of this show and I saw that there was just a Morgan episode crammed into the beginning of this season after a massive cliffhanger, and I really wasn't excited to watch it. I actually thought about skipping it. I never skip episodes of shows. But when I did end up watching it, I was met with one of the best episodes in the entire show. We've discussed the concept of a flashback episode twice in this video, but this is, in my opinion, the best way to do it. The episode starts right where we left Morgan in season 3 and ends right where we find him in season 5. It fills in every gap in this character's history, but it never feels like it's over-explaining or dragging. I think this episode is actually a really interesting way to look at how to develop a character in such a short amount of time. The amount of development Morgan gets in this 1 hour of TV is enough to fill an entire show. What I really wanted to look at is the character of Eastman, the man responsible for all of Morgan's development. We met this character in this episode, and he also dies in this episode. But the way he and this entire episode are written honestly makes it more emotional than most of the main fucking characters who die in this show. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I cared way more when Eastman died than when Glenn died. Back to the Book of Boba Fett, this show attempts to do the same thing with Boba and his tribe of Tusken Raiders. They try to get you attached to these characters so that you get emotional by the time they get smoked. But honestly, I was happy to see them all die, because it meant the show was actually gonna fucking go somewhere. Not only did Book of Boba stretch this out across 4 episodes instead of fitting it all in 1, but they used the extra screen time so poorly. There is so much goddamn filler in these episodes. Like in episode 1 when Boba gets out of the Sarlacc and passes out, and then we see the Jawas take his armor and the Tuskens finding him and kidnapping him and squeezing weird juice into his mouth. And we see them walk across the desert, but this does not need to be in the show. You can just have Boba pass out and then just cut to him at the camp. Nothing shown in the entire stretch of this episode is important at all. You can literally cut all of it out and the show doesn't change at all. You shave off so much fucking time that can be dedicated to the actual plot of the show. The reason Here's Not Here works so well is because the entire episode is dedicated to forming this relationship between these two characters. The only other character in the fucking episode is the guy Morgan's telling the story to. Book of Boba Fett instead decides to spend most of its runtime showing Boba and the Tuskens stopping a train. Stopping a train? They stop a train. I read that wrong. They stop a train. I get that this is Star Wars and not a slow burn character drama, but I don't really think that's an excuse. There's really no character writing on display in any of these flashbacks. They write characters doing things, but I don't know why they're doing any of these things. Why does Boba want to help the Tusken Raiders? They tell you that you can only get so far without a tribe. But why does he think this? He was ready to just fight everyone and leave at first until they captured him again. And he's been nothing but a lone wolf the entire time we've known him. I'm fine with giving him an arc like this, but you forgot to write the arc. Boba Fett just decides he's gonna go band with the Tuskens and we don't actually know why. You are left to jump to your own conclusion. So my conclusion? Boba Fett has Stockholm Syndrome. Number 5, Tatooine sucks. Tatooine is a stupid planet. I hate it! I am so fucking sick of Tatooine. It feels like we're going back there every 5 seconds. And I have literally never been less interested in anything. Tatooine is a memorable planet in Star Wars, the first Star Wars, because it fucking sucks. The entire narrative purpose of Tatooine is that it's a place you would want to leave. So I'm getting real sick of Star Wars trying to gaslight me into caring about this planet. Why did Rey bury the lightsabers here? Yeah, a real strong legacy for Luke and Leia. The planet where Luke hated his life and Leia was enslaved. Legacy. This show really wants me to care about Tatooine. Every major move Boba makes is for the people of Mos Espa. Oh, we have to think of the people. We can't have drugs being sold in this town. That's gonna ruin it. We can't have the Rancor running around. It might hurt someone. Destroy the town. I think if you wanted me to care about a town, shouldn't have been the one where they traded fucking slaves. Even a place like Jabba's palace, one of the most memorable locales in the whole series, is just an empty wasteland now. I know Boba's just starting out his operation, but this is such a boring location when it's empty. It's like they specifically designed this show to be as boring as humanly possible. It also doesn't help that basically every episode of this show is set on Tatooine. I always liked the idea of setting an entire Star Wars story on one planet, but you picked the wrong one. Here's how I would write this show. Like a panther. Number 6. Why is Matt Berry the robot? Matt Berry is in this show and he's just playing Matt Berry's stupid robot. Why? Matt Berry is one of the most insane actors who's ever lived. He has a superhuman ability to make even the most mundane of lines something that'll stick with you.
You really are the most devious bastard in
New York City. So why would you make him a stupid robot who talks in the most monotone voice ever? That's stupid. I mean, is it a legitimate flaw with the quality of the show? Yes! Number 7. Why do the Gamorrean guards look different? How come the Gamorreans are shirtless now? They used to have whole-ass uniforms. Why do they have so much less protection now? Is it just something to... Oh my god! What? Are you already out of things to say about this show? I thought it was supposed to suck. Out of things to say? I can't... I can't be out of things to say. Boba Fett is the most capable villain we've seen so far.
Running was just a waste of time, Solo. I always get my man.
Also, the biggest argument I can provide is this moment. When Luke unholsters his blaster, Boba Fett looks straight into the camera just to show that he knows what's up. And then Luke thinks it's all good, and surprise, Boba Fett, you wouldn't see this shit from a stormtrooper.
Don't cross me. This job isn't always pretty.
Please, just for 1 second, just look at how cool this Boba Fett is. He's using his jetpack to fly, and it forms the base, and it's so cool! Whenever I see Boba walk into a scene or a panel with his scratchy paint, his blaster bolt, dented armor, his Wookiee braid, his jetpack, and his flamethrowers, I rub my cold, clammy hands together, get a stupid fucking grin on my face, and say, oh, this is gonna be good.
John? Dave? Drop it.
Boba Fett is a cool character. He looks cool and he's got a cool voice. He can fly. He's got a cool ship. And he's one of my favorite characters in the whole saga. I love Boba Fett. So what did you do? Boba Fett is not a complicated character. I feel like getting him wrong is infinitely harder than getting him right. All you gotta do is have him show up, shoot a guy, maybe fly a little, and bing bang boom, it's a Boba Fett story. It's not that hard. The reason he works so well in something like The Empire Strikes Back is because he has such a small role in the narrative. He does a cool thing and he leaves the story. So when you give Boba Fett his own story, what do you do with him? Well, if it's pre-Sarlacc, just give him an offshoot bounty hunting story, something like Blood Ties or Dark Empire. But if it's post-Sarlacc, I feel like the story should be about Boba reinventing himself. If he just goes right back to being a bounty hunter, it kind of just makes the Sarlacc feel like a minor inconvenience, when it should be a redefining moment for his character. And when he showed up in The Mandalorian, it kind of seemed like they were on the right track. He felt so different. He had a stronger code of honor, but he fought with a lot more brutality. There was a lot of small changes done to his character that made him really feel like a different guy. But the biggest change of all is that he actually helped people. He wasn't just in it for himself anymore. But he still felt like the same character. He also got a new look. And a skirt. I like it. For the first time in 4 decades, the character of Boba Fett in the live-action medium had promise. But they fucked it up. One thing I'll say is that Boba Fett taking over Jabba's territory to make things right is hard as fuck. Furthermore, the visual of him sitting on the throne is some of the sickest shit I've ever seen. Making Boba Fett an up-and-coming crime lord is so cool on paper. I was kind of hoping that they were just straight up gonna make him Space Heisenberg. Fuck it, go all out, do the little song with the modal nodes in front of the slave one, go crazy. But instead, we got Boba Fett as a crime lord who doesn't like crime. What?! The idea of Boba trying to atone for his sins is a really good idea that, if written well, can take the character to new heights. But you made him too good. I think there was something really interesting in here somewhere. At the start of the show, Boba's all about respect and honor, and it almost feels like an overcorrection for the sake of reinventing himself. And you could argue that this was on purpose, but I don't think it was. This show isn't focused enough to do something like that. And we'll get to that in a minute. I think there was something really interesting to be done with the idea of Boba himself overcorrecting and trying too hard to be good. You could have had Boba realize that in this life, sometimes you really do have to get your hands dirty, whether you like it or not. But instead, this whole respect narrative just kind of works itself out. The way Boba manages his criminal empire at the start of the show is the exact same way he manages it at the end. Throughout the entire show, he doesn't really learn anything. Instead of him as a character changing, it more feels like the entire story changes around him. And I'm sorry, that's bad writing. Why would I root for this guy if he's not doing anything? There's good parts of the whole respect approach, like when he first meets the mods and actually gives them respect, which in turn earns him their loyalty. But the whole idea that you can get by in the criminal underworld by being a nice person just feels so Disney. You know what I mean? Like the kind of thing we were all scared of back in 2012. Yeah, Boba, kill him with kindness! Because if you just be kind, all of your problems will fix themselves. In fact, a lot of the conflicts in this show just kind of work themselves out. Like in episode 2, when the Hutt cousins come back to Mos Espa to reclaim their territory and they bring fucking Black Krrsantan with them. You have to be a real comic book enjoyer to know how cool Black Krrsantan is. Fucking Christ, I know people who are buying houses. When I saw him stroll in, I thought this show was about to get fucking nuts. I thought this show was leading to a sort of civil war between all these iconic bounty hunters. One could even say, the War of the Bounty Hunters. Fuck! But with these characters, Boba had a rival, a clear antagonist that he was gonna have to go up against. Plus, they're Hutts. So it was almost like he was directly going up against a representation of his past. And then in episode 3... I think the reason it always feels like Boba Fett isn't really doing anything, besides the fact that he's not, is because of Fennec Shand. I don't like Fennec Shand. Fennec is in this show to be a cold-blooded mercenary who's always one step ahead of the enemy, and she's willing to get blood on her hands and do things others won't. So she's Boba Fett. I'm really showing signs of early onset Republican when I say this, but I really hate that this show had to shoehorn in a strong female character just to do things that Boba Fett should be doing, and consistently make him look inferior. A good 80% of Fennec's lines in this show just consist of her explaining things to Boba Fett that he has no reason not to know. And also, most of her actions in this show are just things Boba Fett could and should just be doing himself. Like this scene when Boba tries to open a door by pressing the button a bunch of times. And then Fennec comes over and just opens it with a knife. You're telling me Boba Fett can't do this? Why is he just sitting here pressing the button? It's like a 3-year-old trying to call an elevator. Furthermore, if you're going to have a character who literally acts exactly like how Boba Fett was in his prime bounty hunting days, why not do something with that? show that Boba had to change his ways because the old approach wouldn't work for the goal he's trying to accomplish, or have him and Fennec butt heads because of their different approaches to things. But instead, Fennec acting like this is portrayed to be a strength of her character. Once again, I can feel that Republican coursing through my veins. But how come when a man is portrayed as a ruthless, cold-blooded killer, it's seen as a flaw that needs to change? But when a woman does the same thing, it's OMG, girl boss! These two characters are the same! And once again, maybe you could actually do something with these characters having contrasting morals, but instead, whenever there's some sort of discussion on how to run things, Fennec's viewpoint is always the correct one. Like the whole show, Boba's like, no, we can't kill the mayor, that'd be wrong. First of all, just as an outsider, kill the mayor. But this show takes such a weird moral stance for Star Wars by sort of implying that killing is bad. Boba Fett doesn't want to kill anybody. This is established in the first episode.
Fennec, alive.
Boba goes out of his way most times not to kill someone, even when it would be much easier and far more convenient. So the good guys aren't trying to kill anybody. This has been established. But here's an opinion you can share at Christmas dinner. Sometimes we should just kill people. We weren't playing morals when it was time to kill Greedo, were we? Alright, George Lucas was, but he's on his own page. As a matter of fact, Your Honor, if I can call Boba Fett to the stands. Boba, for someone who hates killing, why did you kill all those stormtroopers in the last season?
Because I liked it. Hell, I loved it.
Boba had no problem just obliterating people in The Mandalorian, so why is he all of a sudden trying to play Mr. Pacifist? Murder in the Star Wars universe is the equivalent to littering in our universe. Everybody does it, it's fine.
I can't just leave that there.
So this show taking a strange anti-murder stance is kind of weird to me, especially for Boba Fett of all characters. You know, the guy who threatened to have Baby Yoda shot and killed like 3 days ago? This character feels so different now, and not even just from the way he was in 40-year-old movies. He feels different than he did in the show that came out 1 year before this. But I guess I can accept it. You know, killing is wrong, and in order to have a respectable operation, you should treat all life as precious. Fennec kills the mayor, and it's presented as a heroic move. So at the end of the day, this show proved that killing is good, and that in order to thrive in the criminal underworld, you have to be a cold-blooded killer. This fucking show, man, just kill the mayor in episode 2. It's not that hard. But you know, I could deal with all this contradictory writing and all these weird new morals. I could deal with all of it if they just didn't make Boba such a bore. He's lame. Boba Fett's cool factor was arguably one of his only character traits for the better part of 20 years. Everybody loved Boba Fett from the second that first action figure came out and it shot that missile. They had his ass marching in parades before the movie even came out because people just liked the way he looked. His design was so cool, it was mysterious and tough. But it told a story. Clearly someone shot him in the head. Clearly he killed a Wookiee at some point. Clearly he's seen some action because his cape's all ripped. The whole fun of his character is that he was the original badass. He did just enough to have an established personality and set of morals, and that's clearly why he's so beloved. Like it or not, the rule of cool is essential to Boba's character. My Boba Fett is the one from Cloud City who got the jump on Luke Skywalker because he heard him unholster his blaster from 30 feet away. It's such a small moment, but there's so many layers to it. This type of thing wasn't really seen in Star Wars before this. He was so unique. So yeah, I gotta be honest, seeing him run around a kitchen chasing a rabbit doesn't really do anything for me. And that's not to say it's all bad. There's some things they did with him that I actually really like. For one thing, the suit is awesome. I was a big fan of Boba's scratches and dents because it showed his history, but I love how the new repainted costume shows that he's trying to turn over a new leaf. I already said I liked the skirt, but I also like that the white undersuit got scrapped for black robes. It makes this whole look so much sleeker, and it also just helps the green stick out more. And it's not like he does nothing in this show. He has some cool scenes, like him pulling up on the Rancor in the final battle and him escaping the Sarlacc at the beginning of the show. And that scene of him taking out the biker gang in the Slave One is tough as fuck, like goddamn. But other than that, this doesn't really feel like Boba Fett to me. I think you can change a legacy character and make it work, but I think you strayed too far. And of course, that can open up a whole nother conversation about Star Wars and nostalgia. This character isn't like the action figure I had as a kid, so this is bad. And I can see that being a stupid thing to say if we're talking about something like Luke or Obi-Wan, two characters we've actually followed extensively that have a lot more nuance and real tangible arcs in their respective movies. But this is Boba Fett, the guy who stood behind Darth Vader and had a couple of lines. I think we can have this one. Boba Fett is Clint Eastwood in space. He's the guy who opens the saloon doors and makes everybody stand up. If you make him lame and take away his screen presence, then it's just not the same character. And I'm not saying you can't change him. I actually would encourage that. I would have him deal with his father issues by maybe finding a child who was orphaned just like him and having him take care of this child, which breaks down his hard exterior and shows some of his vulnerability. And fuck, I forgot they already did that. So instead, now we gotta deal with bumbling idiot Boba Fett, who gets thrown around by Black Chewbacca in his underwear and can't even take out regular thugs by himself. He gets hit once and literally has to run home. That's what the little piggies do in the Foot story. And I really feel bad for Temuera Morrison, man, because even he knows how horrible the writing for this character is. And he is taking all of the blame. Disney saw that we didn't like the show, so they up and kicked him out of Star Wars. They kicked Temuera Morrison out of Star Wars because they decided to spend half of the Boba Fett show on him jerking off in the desert with the Tusken Raiders. Hey, at least the suit looks good. You know, when he's fucking wearing it. My biggest pet peeve in this entire fucking show, in fact, no, all of fucking Star Wars, actually, no, screw that, all of movies in general, is when a character gets a really cool helmet or mask or something and then just doesn't wear it at all. Why is Boba Fett taking his helmet off all the time? I genuinely think he has more scenes in this show of him taking off his helmet than he does lines. Boba Fett's face is the helmet. He never took it off in The Empire Strikes Back, he never took it off in Return of the Jedi, and he barely even took it off in the comics. There's even some instances of him referring to the helmet as his face. It brought a level of mystery to the character, it made him colder, and ultimately made him look a lot deadlier. But no, go ahead, take the helmet off. We have to see Temuera Morrison's face, right? I'm sure he wanted that. Nope! He's gone on record saying he wanted to keep the helmet on for more scenes. They even have him take it off in the fight scenes. I know that his helmet is full of coins in this scene, so if he put his helmet on, they'd spill all over the ground and he'd look silly. But from a production standpoint, why on God's green earth would you stage it this way? It is so much less visually interesting to stage a fight with Boba Fett, one of the coolest looking characters of all time, and have him looking like Joe Rogan the whole time. It's like they took everything we liked about Boba Fett and threw it away for no reason. He doesn't talk the way he used to, he doesn't act the way he used to, he doesn't keep the helmet on like he used to, he doesn't even have the fucking spurs in his boots like he used to. Yeah, those are gone too. You know, the sound they specifically used to tease him in The Mandalorian Season 1, Boba Fett's iconic spurs, well, those aren't even in the fucking show. I guess they were just too cool. We had to get rid of him. Boba Fett can't be cool, he has to be nice. We can't make a Star Wars that's mean. People won't watch it. We need to be nice and friendly. We need to have the baby Yoda. This is the Walt Disney Corporation. We're all about family. I'm sick of this show. I don't want to talk about Boba Fett anymore. Let's just move on to the next episode. I'm so sick of this shit. Number 9. Episode 5. An unexpected ally emerges? No way! Oh my god, they're actually doing it! Welcome home, Bosk! Oh. It's you? Okay.
Hey, look, everyone, it's Mando!
Finally, some good fucking Star Wars. The Book of Boba Fett is bad. I don't like it. It's stinky poo-poo. But episode 5, I don't even think I'm exaggerating, is a perfect episode.
What?
Not just perfect for Boba Fett standards. This is actually perfect. Probably because this is not an episode of the Book of Boba Fett. This is The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1. Better than The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1. It's incredible. All you had to do was take Boba Fett out of the show, and it became good. It's very weird that this is in the Boba Fett show, but at this point, fuck it. I'll take anything, as long as it's good. If I had to use one word to describe this episode, it would probably be refreshing. Because everything about it is just so fucking refreshing. After After 4 episodes of pale, sandy, hot, ugly, sticky, messy, awful Tatooine, we immediately have an episode that opens in a cold meat freezer with lots of blues and silvers, and even the music sounds more metallic and cool than it did in previous episodes. And instead of Tatooine, we're on this cool ring world in the middle of space. It's dark, it's edgy, and most importantly, it's actually something new. It's such a breath of fresh air to finally escape Star Wars original trilogy nostalgia world and actually see a new planet. I don't even think it has a name. It's just a ring world. Even the directing in this episode is more interesting. Whenever I see Bryce Dallas Howard's name on a Star Wars show, I get excited, because she actually likes to do cool shit. This episode doesn't feel as static, there's long oneers, there's cool fight scenes, there's some really nice looking shots. There's also a part of the episode that just straight up becomes Top Gun for a few minutes. Good stuff. This episode is a personal favorite of mine because even though it still has those Disney Plus Star Wars isms, it's probably the most domestic Star Wars we've ever seen. What I mean by that is that this episode is pretty grounded. I mean, as grounded as Star Wars can get. There's not a lot of action or conflict or really anything. This episode's like a really chill side quest in a video game. Like one of the side quests that you spend like 20 minutes on and you get your reward and you're like, thanks. I don't really want this though. There's a lot of moments where you think something big's gonna happen and the Mandalorian's gonna have a big fight or a big shootout or something, but it just doesn't happen. Like this part at the start of the episode where he completes his bounty and the crime boss he delivers it to is pestering him to sit down and have a meal and everything, and he's just not having it. So he goes to leave and he heads for the door and the crime boss apologizes and gives him his money and he leaves. If this was another Star Wars show, the door probably would have closed and he would have had a big action sequence. He probably would have had to fight off every bounty hunter and crime lord in the room and come out on top. But no, not in this one. In this moment where Din goes to ride public transport and the TSA droid asks him to put all his weapons in a cargo box. And he says,
I know everything that's in there.
And when I first watched this, I was certain that when he got off that ship, he was gonna find out that someone stole his weapons, and he was gonna have to track them down and make them pay for stealing his arsenal. But no, it's fine. No one stole them. Even when he does get a fight scene and he ignites the darksaber for the first time, and you think it's gonna be so epic and hard, but then you see that he doesn't even know how to use it, and he slices his fucking leg open and he's limping for the next like 7 minutes. I don't know, man, I like that. The darksaber in this episode is really visually interesting too. It feels less like a lightsaber and more like a broadsword. It's really cool. Overall, this episode is pretty inconsequential. If you're looking for something that greatly adds on to the ongoing Star Wars narrative, you're not really gonna get that. The Mandalorian takes the bus and builds a spaceship. That's the plot of the episode. But the important thing is that it's not fucking boring! How is it that 4 episodes of Boba Fett robbing a train, hunting down the mayor's assistant, stealing back the Slave One, fighting a Wookiee, etc. can be so unbelievably boring, yet an episode about Din Djarin hanging out and being sad can be so interesting? Well, it's simple actually. The Mandalorian is a better character than Boba Fett. Din Djarin is a perfect character. He's a Star Wars character who hasn't seen Star Wars. He's really bad at a lot of stuff, and he's kind of an idiot, and he walks like a girl, but he's also really cool, and he can do a lot of really cool stuff, and he has a cute little guy that he hangs out with. There's a lot to like about him. Fuck. That was the worst leg cramp I've ever had. It came out of fucking nowhere. It was like a jump scare. In a time when Star Wars was kind of just recycling the same handful of characters and stories, The Mandalorian felt unique. He was a brand new character, and he felt like more of an everyman than any other character in this universe. And also, his show was standalone. You can pick up The Mandalorian Season 1, Episode 1 without seeing a single second of Star Wars anything and still manage to enjoy it. But most importantly, he was just silver Boba Fett. This guy is just if Boba Fett had lines and an arc. If you're still not convinced, you can even look at some of the concept art for Season 1. Your Honor, that is Boba Fett. So the casuals liked this show, the hardcore fans liked this show, and the Boba Fett nerds liked this show. Everyone was invested in this character. He's so easy to like. I could watch scenes of this guy just walking for 20 minutes and still be entertained. He's such a perfect lead for this story. And then season 2 of The Mandalorian introduced Boba Fett as a supporting cast member. And it worked! He had such a fun presence in that show. He was just the Mandalorian's wacky barbarian friend. But now that Boba has his own show, there's nothing to give him. Everything that should have gone into a Boba Fett character arc went to The Mandalorian. So naturally, when you give Mando his own episode of the Boba Fett show, I'm just gonna like it more. Because to be honest, this is what I wanted in the first place. The reason you can make a boring episode on paper work with a character like Din is because we're invested in his character. We like him. We've been alongside him with everything he's gone through. And the last time we saw him, that shit was sad as hell. He gave up his son to Luke Skywalker and then we didn't see him for like a year. At this point in his story, he's the most literally me character that's ever been in Star Wars. He has no car, no house, no job, no friends, no money, and no bitches. Damn, bitch, you live like this? He falls down some stairs, he gets kicked out of his weird cult. This is just an episode about a man bumbling his way through life. But we like watching it because we actually care about this guy. He lost his son, who we also love. But because we care about him, we want to just exist alongside him and peek into what his life is like now that he lost his son. Oh, never mind. False alarm. Found him. And even when the episode actually does end up making the shift to Tatooine, it still manages to feel refreshing. I care infinitely more about the Mandalorian fixing up his new ship with Amy Sedaris and taking it for a test flight, way more than Boba Fett's war with the fish people. The Mandalorian is a show that I feel sort of lost its way over time. It only had 2 seasons before it was mysteriously cancelled, but there's such a contrast between season 1 and season 2. Season 1 felt a lot more grounded and in its own element. It was its own Star Wars. The music was unique, the characters were all new, it was very much its own thing. And then season 2, while still being really good and really fun to watch, was definitely the fan service season. There was a lot of cameos and callbacks and references, and it was kind of disappointing to see the show go full Star Wars so quickly. But this episode of the Book of Boba Fett felt like a return to form for The Mandalorian. It was self-contained and focused on the things that made season 1 so special. It was really light on the fan service and felt more character-driven. Watching this show week to week, I was actually really optimistic and interested in what the next couple of episodes had to offer. The Mandalorian Season 1 was back, and I could not be happier. So if I can get something even remotely similar to this vibe next week, I'll be a happy camper. Number 10! Luke Skywalker's in this show, I guess.
We replaced you with a CGI version of Mark Hamill.
I'm ready for my close-up.
If you know me and were there for the CGI Luke saga in February 2022, you'll know that I have a very rocky relationship with this episode. When this first came out, I hated it. I thought it was the worst thing ever made. I even said it was worse than Rise of Skywalker. And then within like 2 days, I started actually really liking it. I liked seeing Luke's Jedi Academy in its early stages, and seeing him take on his first apprentice was really interesting. Something about this episode now, it just doesn't work for me. And I think in order to say that, I also have to come out and say that the Mandalorian Season 2 finale does work for me, and it works well. This is the first time we ever saw deepfake Luke, and yeah, the face looks fucking horrible. But you know what? They tried. This set a bad precedent for big cameo finales and weird ghoulish deepfake cameos, which is horrible. But I think as its own little pocket moment in time, I like this. It gets a lot of flack for just being fan service that comes out of nowhere, but I have to disagree for two major reasons. Reason number one being that this really doesn't come out of nowhere at all. The whole season is building towards Din taking Grogu to a Jedi, and he literally makes contact with one like 2 episodes before this. And when it comes to Jedi who are banging around the galaxy in this time period, there's not really much of a selection. It had to be Luke. The only other way to do this same ending without Luke would be to just make a new Jedi to take away the baby. And I genuinely do not think there would be a more hated on-sight character than this new random hypothetical Jedi guy. Reason number 2 is that fan service is okay if I'm the fan being serviced. Luke Skywalker coming out of nowhere to save the day is going to activate my Star Wars chimpanzee brain. There's really nothing I can do about that. There is no character in Star Wars that I trust more than Luke Skywalker. He is the automatic feel-good character. So not just seeing him save the day, but also watching him take the baby just makes me feel good. And the actual goodbye scene between Din and Grogu, combined with seeing R2-D2 again, and seeing him and Baby Yoda interact while the music pops the fuck off, while Luke and the Mandalorian exchange looks of reassurance, had me in shambles when I first saw this episode. And it still moves me today. It's a good feeling watching Grogu go off with Luke Skywalker to reach his true potential. But it also hurts like hell watching Din Djarin lose everything he ever loved in one moment. It's a scene that gives such extreme conflicting emotions, and it's the only scene in Star Wars that really makes me feel like this. It's a beautiful ending to not just the season, but also these characters. It has a real sense of finality to it, and honestly, I would have loved if we never saw Luke or Grogu ever again, and the future was left as a blank slate for our imaginations. But we just can't have nice things, can we? This episode really is just the fan service world tour. They throw in like every Star Wars character that's ever existed just for the sake of making the fans freak out and throw their TVs. I really like Luke Skywalker, and in this episode he's basically the main character. So on paper, I should really like this episode. It's got Luke, it's got Baby Yoda, and it's got a lightsaber, and it's got Ahsoka, and it's got the Mandalorian, and it's got nothing!
Nothing?
Looking beyond the familiar faces, this episode straight up has nothing. All noodles, no sauce. Beyond the cookie-cutter Star Wars formula, this episode is just a piece of wood. Not only is the pacing and the story just really stupid and does not need to be in an episode of the Boba Fett show, but in this episode, I kind of fucking hate Luke Skywalker. This guy was cool in The Mandalorian because he was in it for like 5 minutes. He said like 3 things and then he just left. Huh, that sounds familiar. But now that Luke actually has things to say and do, I hate him. And it's for a pretty simple reason. You see, Dave Filoni doesn't know how to write Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is my favorite Star Wars character and one of my favorite fictional characters ever. And I do not think there's a greater pain in this universe than watching one of your favorite characters be handled by a writer that does not understand them. I have gone through this far too many times. Dave Filoni gets praised as basically Star Wars Jesus, and yeah, he made Clone Wars. That was a pretty good show. But Dave also had an entire team of writers on Clone Wars that was helping him along the way. And now that he has a lot more control with these shows, I'm starting to notice a pattern. Before this show even came out, when I saw that only 1 of the 7 episodes was written by Dave Filoni, I knew it was gonna be like this. Because I don't think Dave Filoni really likes making good stories anymore. Everything he does now feels more like he's just playing with action figures. This episode is like a kid who just got a new Luke Skywalker action figure. He doesn't want to play with the Mandalorian anymore. He definitely doesn't want to play with Boba Fett anymore. So Luke Skywalker's the new special interest this week. And he's written like an action figure. Luke in this show is calm and collected and disciplined, and he's in complete control of his emotions. But that is not who Luke is. Luke Skywalker's not a monk, and I hate when he's written like one. Luke is one of the most emotionally driven characters in all of Star Wars. He acted like a monk in The Mandalorian too, but I liked it there, mainly because he's around total strangers. He doesn't know what he's gotten himself into here. He has to keep up the Jedi facade to show his status. But when he takes Baby Yoda and those elevator doors close, he turns to Grogu, smiles, and tells him a dumb joke to cheer him up. Was this written in a random offshoot Star Wars novel? No. Was it said by Jon Favreau in an interview? No. I know this happened because I know Luke Skywalker, and that is exactly what he would do. Because he's an empathetic person. This might sound a little insane, but I am of the belief that the best Luke Skywalker has ever been written in anything, including the movies, is the fucking Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign. I know. He is the most chill-ass dude in this game. He helps an Imperial Special Ops soldier for no reason other than the fact that he's a good person. He has definitively taken a stance against the Empire. His kill count will tell you that. And he just sees this guy in danger and helps him because he's a person in need. That's fucking Luke Skywalker, man.
There's still conflict in you.
Of course there's conflict in me. I'm not blind. I know what the Empire is capable of, but what else is there?
A choice.
The rebellion?
No. A choice to be better. May the Force be with you.
I do not understand what was in the air in that writer's room. This is so good! On the other hand, Book of Boba Fett Luke just feels like a different character. Seeing him be really zen and kind of cold while he's teaching a literal baby is so out of character, it's not even funny. I've been making my way through that Shadow of the Sith book recently, and that book got it right. Luke is a chill-ass dude in that book. He makes jokes, he has his struggles, and he even daps people up. This is a guy I'd want to share a cold one with. But Luke in this show is the reason I'd need to drink in the first place. This guy is fucking horrifying. But the worst thing about this episode is the ending. Luke makes Grogu choose between going back with the Mandalorian or staying on the path of the Jedi. Which sounds fine on paper, but
if you choose the armor, you'll return to your friend, the Mandalorian. However, you will be giving into attachment to those that you love, and forsaking the way of the Jedi.
What? Luke Skywalker, the man who saved his evil father simply because he loves him, and only fought him in the first place because he loves his friends, is banning attachments in his new Jedi Order. Okay, why? I know Luke is young and inexperienced and is just trying to remake the Jedi Order from scratch based on whatever information he could get his hands on, but you're telling me he's continuing the traditions that created Darth Vader. Yeah, sure, man, whatever. I never saw Luke as a traditional Jedi. He's supposed to be the best of the Order while also doing things his own way. He's supposed to be a new hope for the galaxy. And even when the Empire strikes back against the Jedi, against the advice of his masters, he uses his compassion and makes way for the return of the Jedi. So now, watching Luke make a baby choose between his father and the Jedi way is not only extremely fucking stupid and makes no sense, but it also makes me actively root against him. And if I'm rooting against Luke Skywalker, well, congratulations. You've failed at writing him. Bad Star Wars. Go back and try again. Number 11. Boba Fett is still in this show, by the way. Why is the Mandalorian green now? I thought he was silver. Did he just paint his... Oh shit, that's Boba Fett, isn't it? Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of forgot Boba Fett was actually in this show. But it's okay. So did the writers. 2 episodes out of 7 just do not feature Boba Fett in any capacity. Actually, wait, whoa, no, he has a cameo in episode 6. Doesn't say anything though. I don't really have a problem with dedicating a few episodes of your show to another character if it offers up good storytelling, but I feel like if you're gonna do this, You need more episodes. 7 episodes on its own is such a bizarre choice, but dedicating 2 of them to a different story altogether is kind of insane. What's even worse, though, is the fact that they're the 2 episodes right before the finale. So we don't even have a motive for Boba to do what he's doing, and the show's already fucking over. Boba's arc in this show, if he even has one, is the one with him and the Tuskens, learning to accept them as part of his life. But in the present day, he's got nothing. He's a plank of wood. The end of the previous episode introduced Cad Bane as the big bad of this show. This is the last episode. Cad Bane is the main antagonist of this show, and it feels like they genuinely forgot to include him. I've never been the biggest Cad Bane fan. I think he's alright, but most of his episodes in Clone Wars are not the good ones. So I wasn't like dying to see him in this show. There's a bunch of other bounty hunters I'd much rather see, but whatever. Alright, I can get behind 2 bounty hunters fighting as long as it's written well. Alright? This could be good. Let them cook.
Don't toy with me. I'm not a little boy any longer. You are an old man.
I'm still faster than you.
But I have armor.
Boba and Cad Bane have no history. Their entire motive for hating each other in this episode comes from a canceled episode of the Clone Wars cartoon. Do you hear how stupid that sounds? I don't like how these Mandoverse shows make you watch the animated stuff so you can understand the plot. It's really alienating to the average viewer who doesn't care about silly kids cartoons, and it makes me have to explain a lot of things to my parents. But at least you can actually watch that stuff. This episode never even got fucking finished, and you're making it the homework for a whole ass show in a different medium. Star Wars, I love you, but you're making it very hard. I mean, in all fairness, the whole finale is terrible anyway. It's a poorly paced CGI battle, and it's not interesting, I'm sorry. The only stuff I like in this episode are the handful of scenes we get of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian actually interacting and being friends. I genuinely love these 2 together. They're like the Iron Man and War Machine of Star Wars. I love their big fight scene where they go fucking nuts and really fuck up specifically this guy. And I also really like that part where the Mandalorian suggests that they run away together.
We rush out there, catch them unaware, then we can escape to your ship at the palace.
But even they just stop interacting after a while, so I can't even have that. The one good thing in the entire finale, and it's already gone. It makes me not even want to watch the fucking show anymore. So I'm not gonna. Instead, I want you to have a seat right here. I want you guys to watch this commercial with me. I promise it'll be quick. It's only like 30 seconds. Come on.
So I said, let's see her try that with a pineapple.
The pineapple. That's so funny. Oh, Boba Fett. It's Boba Fett.
Boba Fett? What the hell kind of a name is that? Are you foreign or something? We could call him Boba.
Boba?
Boba Fett!
Oh my god.
They're about to
Oh my,
store
don't touch him, it's Boba Fett. Oh my god. Man, that's a good commercial. That's a classic. Yeah, it sure is a classic. So let's break it down. We see these 2 men, presumably office workers at some kind of convention. The one on the right is telling the one on the left a story that somehow involves a pineapple. It's humorous, as we don't know how the story began, so it lets us come to our own conclusions. As for their names, it appears that the one on the right is named Pixels, and the one on the left's name is clearly Patrick. Pixels and Patrick come across Boba Fett, which is funny, as Boba Fett typically wouldn't be seen in an environment like this. Pixels and Patrick make fun of Boba Fett for having a weird name that kind of sounds foreign. I'm not really sure what would be so wrong if Boba Fett was foreign, but we can ignore that for now. Pixels suggests calling him Bubba Fett, which doesn't really make sense as that is not his name. It even says so right here. Bubba Fett then pulls out his EE-3 blaster rifle and shoots Pixels and Patrick, killing them. An unnamed woman opens the door and Boba Fett kills her too. It's a perfect story told in a short format, and most importantly, it is a perfect characterization of Boba Fett. He's cold and he's calculated. He lets the two men speak before he opens fire. He only fires on the two men after he's been insulted and disrespected by them. When you have a reputation in the galaxy like Boba Fett does, sometimes you really have to lay down the law. Clearly, he did not come here with the intention of taking any lives. He was willing to give this convention a chance, which you can tell by the fact that he agreed to wear this name tag. He only started blasting after the environment became hostile. As for the woman he kills at the end, she simply was a witness to his crime and had to be dealt with. It was nothing personal. He doesn't utter a single word throughout this entire encounter, but you can see exactly how he's feeling simply by his body language. He did not want to kill this innocent woman, but it was something that had to be done. Notice the subtle detail of Boba Fett not looking at the woman. He keeps his head forward and shoots his gun without even looking. This is because he's hesitant to even kill her. He can't even look her in the eye before taking her life. Even in his lowest of moments, Boba Fett's code of honor remains present. All of that, combined with the beautiful suit of armor that looks ripped straight out of Empire Strikes Back, gets you one of the purest interpretations of Boba Fett's character. And the fact that this Spike TV commercial gave us better Boba Fett characterization than the Boba Fett-led spin-off TV show, it's just... Number 12! Why is Star Wars like this now? Star Wars fucking sucks! There, I said it. Star Wars was a cultural phenomenon. There was a point in time where it ruled the world. They were making banger after banger after banger. Everything was fine. But then Disney bought Star Wars, and now it sucks! Shocker! Book of Boba Fett is one of the most painful things I've ever had to witness. It took a great concept and made genuine sludge. It's a stain on the entire franchise's legacy, and it's one of the few movies or shows or books or video games or fucking anything that I can confidently say that I hate. I hate this show. I hate what they did to Boba Fett. I hate talking about it. I fucking hate everything about this show. Even the stuff I said was good before, fuck it, no, it's bad now. The Mandalorian was so good. I loved it. I loved the Mandalorian Season 2 finale. The entire Boba Fett finale exists to undo everything that was so good about the Mandalorian and the finale. It even undoes things that happened in this show. You know who I was talking about how great episode 5 was? And how it handled the grief of losing a child really well? Well, fuck it, everything's fine now. Grogu's back, and they do a big hug, and he does a big flip, and he uses the Force, and the show's over. Hooray for Baby Groda! What the fuck? We gotta put Baby Yoda in the show. The kids love him, and he sells all those toys. This shit fucking reeks. I hate that every major storytelling decision in this show is written by a streaming service algorithm. Boba Fett can't kill anybody, people won't like that. We need to put Baby Yoda in the show, it'll get more viewership and sell more toys. We have to stay on Tatooine because it's a thing people recognize. This is where Luke Skywalker was a little baby. He was a little boy on this planet. Remember that? I cannot take this anymore. I was in the shower the other day and I got to thinking about the Star Wars Holiday Special. And that thing fucking sucks. But I think I actually like it more than the Boba Fett show. The Star Wars Holiday Special, at its worst, is inoffensive. It's just a bad special. It doesn't change anything. Everything you like about Star Wars remains intact after watching it. It made me a little afraid of Luke Skywalker, but clearly that's not really uncharted territory for us. After they made the holiday special, they turned around and dropped The Empire Strikes Back like it was nothing. One of the best movies ever made. But the Book of Boba Fett ruins everything. Boba Fett and Luke Skywalker, two of my favorite characters, are ruined. They suck. The show ruins The Mandalorian, another show altogether. The show arguably also ruined Cad Bane by making him die like a bitch. And honestly, it probably ruined something else that I can't even think about right now. This show's like a fucking bull in a china shop. It just wrecks everything in its path. And after making this, they didn't turn around and drop a banger that absolved them of all their sins. They dropped Obi-Wan. A show that really isn't much better. They just keep making garbage. Star Wars is just garbage now. So yes, the Boba Fett show is worse than the Star Wars Holiday Special. I would rather watch that on repeat than ever watch this show again. And you want to hear some fucked up shit? Some really fucked up shit? I'm talking about some shit that's fucked up. It's not even the worst Star Wars show. The Mandalorian Season 3 is worse. Ahsoka is worse. The Acolyte is probably worse. Yeah, you heard that right. Probably. because I didn't even fucking watch it. Me, Mr. Star Wars, and Mr. Funko Pops. He'll eat up anything as long as it has the Star Wars name on it. I didn't even watch that show. I can't. I physically cannot put myself through more bad AI-generated Star Wars. This new era of Star Wars has actually gaslit me into somewhat enjoying The Rise of Skywalker. I didn't even think that was fucking possible. I hated that movie so much when it came out. But at least that movie has a fucking pulse. I can actually put that movie on and have an okay time. And I actually feel like a living, breathing person while doing it. But these shows are horrible. They are the most soulless visual and auditory experiences I've ever put myself through. Yeah, I can't even call them shows anymore. They're visual and auditory experiences. Because shows have themes and character writing and are made by people, not algorithms. Remember when the original Star Wars movie came out? No. And the movie barely even got made because George Lucas's ideas were too insane for most studios and they weren't willing to take the risk? The original Star Wars is one of my favorite movies ever made because it's such a creative feat. Every little thing in those movies was thought of by George Lucas from scratch. All these iconic and beloved characters like Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Han Solo, the droids, Chewbacca, Darth Vader, Obi-Wan, and whoever else, original. All the planets and locales, original. Lightsabers, original. All the weird little alien guys in the cantina, original. Except Satan, he's from the Bible. It's not really a secret that Star Wars borrows heavily from things like Dune, Flash Gordon, old samurais and westerns, and probably heaviest of all, Arthurian mythology. But it's always used as an inspiration and as an homage. And these ideas are always used as a stepping stone to build something new, and never used to just straight up recycle old ideas or shove old characters in your face for the sake of getting a reaction. Remember Sanjuro? Every Star Wars thing that comes out now simply exists to show you highlight reels of what came before. They'll put weird, gratuitous, and soulless cameos and references into these shows so that you'll clap like a seal and eat your slop like a good little piggy, because it reminds you of that thing you liked when you were 7. And then you'll go onto your little streaming service and just watch that other thing you like so that some suit gets residuals. In the 70s and 80s, George Lucas was fighting for his life to make Star Wars. Heartfelt films with evergreen messages of family, love, and redemption. But now Disney is firing up that machine and making Star Wars! Still pushing the same general concepts and imagery without any of the heart. Star Wars was once a beacon for creativity and innovation, and now it's just evolved to being a compilation of, hey, look at this guy. I cannot stand this era of Star Wars. It needs to go away for 10 fucking years. Actually, no, fuck it. Actually, just go away forever. I never want to see this shit again. I think if I see even one more stupid cameo or little reference in these V&A experiences again, I'm gonna fucking lose my mind. Oh, that's Cammy and Fixer from the deleted scenes of A New Hope. Right. I'm sorry I ever got into this stupid franchise in the first place. I'm done with you, Obi-Wan. I'm done with you, Boba Fett. I'm done with you. I'm very mad at you, Darth Vader. Stupid lightsaber. I don't even want it anymore. I'm done. Yoda.
Angry you are. Hurt by the quality of Star Wars products, yes?
Yeah, Yoda, I just can't take it anymore, man. These shows, they broke me.
Broken you are not. Always a light after the dark there is.
But Yoda, these shows are insufferable. They make me feel so empty inside. I physically can't.
That's serious. It is not. Fictional, these stories are.
Oh, yeah. I guess you're right.
Yes.
Well, it's okay. We still have time. I know how I can turn this around. Thanks, Master.
Okay. Just go fuck myself. I guess I will.
When in doubt, I always like to take a little trip back to my all-time favorite episode of Star Wars TV. The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 7, The Believer. When it comes to the grand scope of Mandalorian episodes, this one probably gets talked about the least, and it's surprising to me because I think it's pretty easily the best episode of the show. It's a fun, exciting story that follows what's essentially Star Wars' Suicide Squad. There's a lot of really good character writing in this episode, and they managed to make an unlikable character like Miggs Mayfeld one of my favorite Star Wars side characters and deliver some of the most emotionally charged scenes in Star Wars. But maybe if that's not doing it for you, we can revisit another one of my all-time favorites, Andor Season 1, Episode 10, One Way Out. An intense, angry, politically motivated story about an Imperial prison break. It's a story that really comes from the heart about inspiration and rising up to take a stand against oppression, with a tone that Star Wars usually doesn't like to take. Kino Loy's monologue over the intercom to rile up the prisoners to take a stand could be qualified as not just one of the best Star Wars scenes, but one of the best television scenes of all time. Its only real competition being Luthen Rael's monologue at the end of that very same episode. But maybe you're not in the mood for that. Maybe that's a little too serious. If that's the case, we can revisit Star Wars Rebels, Season 3, Episode 20, Twin Sons. A story about Darth Maul's journey to finally find and kill Obi-Wan Kenobi over 30 years after their original confrontation. And it ends with one of the best lightsaber duels ever put to screen, and one of the most satisfying conclusions for a character arc in all of Star Wars. But maybe you want something a little lighter than that. Well, if that's what you want, we can check out The Mandalorian Season 1, Episode 2, The Child. A fun, light story about the Mandalorian being inconvenienced by Jawas after they ransack his ship and going on a little side quest to vanquish a beast in order to get his parts back. All while taking care of a mysterious child he's recently taken under his wing. This episode is so cool and so easy to watch because it barely has any dialogue at all. The episode is 31 minutes long and no one speaks until 11 minutes in. I just think that's really cool. But maybe you want something a little longer, a little more of an experience. Well, then get ready for Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 4, Episodes 7, 8, 9, and 10, also known as the Umbara Arc. The Umbara arc follows the 501st Legion on a dangerous mission on the dark planet of Umbara. When Anakin Skywalker steps away and their general is replaced with a Jedi Master who has no regard for the lives of his men, the clones wrestle with following orders like good soldiers or taking a stand against their Jedi General. These episodes had me gripping the couch when I first watched them. And as far as Star Wars goes, this is probably some of the darkest stuff they've ever done. So look, yeah, maybe Star Wars is missing the mark recently. I think I've made that abundantly clear. And maybe they do have me by the balls. Star Wars was a crucial part of my childhood. I've been watching these stories unfold from the moment I gained consciousness. And these same stories that I watched as a kid still resonate with me today. Not a day in my life goes by where I don't think about Star Wars at least once. It's so finely embedded into my DNA. These characters have been a guiding force for me for as long as I can remember. Luke Skywalker taught me the values of being a good person and fighting for what's right. Qui-Gon Jinn taught me that you can't control everything in life and that everything happens for a reason. And it's how you adapt to your surroundings that matters. Han Solo taught me what it really means to love and how no matter the choices you've made, you can always change for the better. Rey taught me that it doesn't matter what you're made of or where you come from, it's what you make of yourself in the here and now that matters. And being kind and heroic isn't about what you gain, but what you pass on. These characters in this world are important to me. The fact that I can not only credit these movies for teaching me things as a child, but also now as an adult, is something magical, and a feeling I can't really put into a coherent sentence. But no matter what comes out now, or even years down the line, I'm immeasurably grateful for the stories we already have and the effects they've had on me. I can't really imagine a world where there's new Star Wars stories being told, and them not piquing my interest even a little bit. Even shows like Acolyte that I didn't actually end up finishing still at least made me check them out, and I'll even check out that new Skeleton Crew show at some point. Because at its core, I love Star Wars. It means a great deal to me. And even if they turn out a billion stinkers year after year, as long as there's an odd episode or story in the bunch like One Way Out, or The Believer, or The Child, or Twin Sons, or the Umbara arc, or any of the countless other great stories or characters that have been told throughout the years, Even if it's once in a blue moon, if they keep doing stuff like that, they'll always have me.